to my kitchen. We are making Southern cornbread dressing for Thanksgiving. So we're actually having our work Thanksgiving tomorrow, which will be Friday the 22nd. So I am going to prep this, and several people had asked me if I would film it so that you guys can see kind of how everything works. So I've kind of got it started already. So what I've got going here is we have eggs, boiled eggs in our dressing, and then I also need some boiled eggs for the gravy that I make. So I have seven boiled eggs, 7 eggs in here that are getting ready to get boiled. This pan back here, we're going to saute our celery. This is 3 stalks of celery that I have diced up over here, and so we're going to put those in with some butter, and this is unsalted butter, I think. So salted, sweet cream, salted butter, doesn't really matter, but make it sure it's butter. That's going to go back here in this pan, so we're going to saute that butter with the celery. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in there. And one of the things, you guys, if you watch this video and then you go and watch other videos on how to make dressing, is every region, even in Texas, every region does it a little bit different. So the way that I do it is the way that we tend to do it out in West Texas, where I grew up. And so, let me grab a towel, sorry. So this is the way that we start it. If you want to, you can do onions. I usually do onions with the celery. About a half an onion will work just fine. However, some of the people are allergic to onions, and so I don't use those. I'll probably use just a teensy bit of dried onions, or onion powder works as well. So you're just going to turn that on. You're just going to saute that until the celery is soft. And then we're going to boil these eggs here as well. And you know how, I'm sure you know how to boil eggs. If not, I bet there's a YouTube video on it. So the other thing that's really important, the cornbread that I use is the Jiffy cornbread, okay? And I use this because it is a little bit sweet. It's like sweet cornbread. And so this is what we've always used. And you have to have milk and eggs for it as well. So the Jiffy cornbread, don't mind the smoking skillet, it's fine. And then I also use the Pepperidge Farm herb stuffing. And this is stuffing mix, and I actually mix this stuffing mix in with my cornbread, and it works really well. You can use bread, like dried bread, like so if you have a loaf of bread, take it, tear it into pieces, and leave it in a pan overnight and let it kind of dry out. But this works really well for like a semi-homemade kind of a situation. So we'll just pour those in here in a little bit. You're also going to need poultry seasoning, and you also need sage, and you need salt and pepper. And I'll probably use that whole stick of butter before I'm done, okay? So as this is gonna start cooking, let me turn on my eggs here and get those going. One of the things that is very important to me is to make cornbread in a cast iron skillet. So I have my small cast iron. As you can see, I have already made one deal of cornbread in here already. And so I'm just going to keep using this pan. The cool thing about cornbread is that, and about cast iron, is that cornbread will season that cast iron, and the next batch is even better than the first batches. So we're going to do that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the cornbread. I'm going to do 1 box at a time in this small skillet. If you have a regular size, like a 9-inch cast iron, you can do 2 boxes at a time. You just got to watch and make sure that the middle gets done really well. Otherwise, your middle is still going to be a little too cakey, and nobody likes a cakey middle, okay? At least not when it comes to dressing. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this in clips so that you guys aren't just watching like celery saute and eggs boil. I don't figure that'll be very much fun. So I will be back here in just a moment. When I get the cornbread, the first batch of cornbread is going to go in. And I'm going to get out my pan for my seasoning and things like that, or for my breadcrumbs, and we will go from there. So I'll catch you guys back here in just a second. Okay, guys, sorry, you are on the arm, the bendy arm, which is attached to the refrigerator door. I do have a small kitchen, so I'm going to be putting my casserole in a clear casserole dish because this one has a lid and a carrying case, and since I'm taking it to work tomorrow, that just works the best. So you want to do a couple of things. As you can see, I've got the celery done. I did actually kind of sear it just a little bit, which is not great, but you know what? We're going to make it work. The eggs are almost boiled. So a couple of things you want to do is I've got the oven on and it's preheating to 400. You just follow the directions on the box of Jiffy. If you don't have access to Jiffy, you can just use regular cornmeal and then put some sugar in it. Don't ask me how much because I'm not sure. I think it's like a half a cup or something, but don't quote me on that. So you just follow the directions. You do need 1 egg and 1/3 of a cup of milk for each box of cornbread that you do. So I'm going to be doing 3 boxes of cornbread and the bread seasonings, if it will all fit in here. If not, I'll only do 2 boxes of cornbread. So this is what your cornbread should look like. And I'm sorry about the lighting in here, guys. There's really just not a whole lot I can do about the lighting in this kitchen. So it should be kind of a little bit of a thicker, cakey consistency. And it's going to be kind of grainy. So don't freak out if that's what yours looks like. So one of the things that we do in a southern kitchen to get your cornbread nice and crispy on the outside like you want it and nice and soft on the inside is you're going to take about however much butter that is. Okay, and this is actually going to go in your cast iron skillet. And then you are going to put your cast iron skillet in the oven and let it get hot before you pour your cornbread in there. So kind of like how you would do pancakes. You know how when you pour pancakes into the pan, it needs to already be hot and they automatically start sizzling? That's what you want your cornbread to do, okay? So as the eggs cook, I'm going to do this first batch of cornbread. I'm fixing to stick this into the oven. We're at 350 now. So I'm just going to put this in. And you only put your pan in long enough for your butter to melt, and then you kind of coat the bottom of your pan with your butter. And then you pour in your cornmeal, or your corn mix, and then this says to cook it for 15 to 20 minutes or until golden brown. So I start at 15, and then if I need to leave it in a few more minutes, I can. It's been a hot minute since I made cornbread, and the last batch is a little bit burnt. So we're going to call that a miss. So the next thing I'm going to do while we're on here, you guys can't see my, see if we turn you, there we go. Now you can see my pan. So I'm just going to open up these breadcrumbs and they just get poured in here, okay? And it is quite a lot of breadcrumbs, and then once I add the cornmeal in here, it will be over the pan. But what you're going to do is once you get your cornbread done, you're going to break it up in here and mix it all together. And then we're going to douse all of this with either turkey stock if you have it, or chicken stock or broth, whichever you want to call it. I've got chicken broth. So I did buy a, where's it at? I do have 2 cartons of the chicken broth here. One full one will be needed for the dressing, and then the other one we will use some for the dressing and the rest will be for the soup. And if I need to grab some more tomorrow, I can. But that's usually what I estimate in is 2 to 3 things of chicken broth. So that's what you're going to need. And then you can also take and just dump your celery in there, butter and all. Don't be afraid to let that butter drain in if you still have some left. And then you just mix it in, let it do its thing. You don't do any of your seasoning or anything until your cornmeal is done and everything is in here together. And it looks like a really hot mess because basically this is kind of a, if you think about the cornbread, it kind of turns into like a twice baked thing. So you do it this way, you bake your cornbread the first time, mix it all in, get it wet with your chicken stock, and then you bake it again to get your dressing mix. And your dressing, my dressing, I prefer to have a cake-like consistency when it's done. So it is still wet. Excuse the beep. It is still wet when it's finished. And we're going to old school it and fold up the towel to pull this pan out of the oven. Okay, so you just take your pan, swirl your butter around, make sure the bottom gets nice and coated. If you can coat the sides, go ahead and do that. And like I said, we're not going to worry about those crumbs that are already in there because those are cornbread crumbs. And you do that every time. Now the good news is the next time you do this, your cornbread's gonna, or your pan's gonna come out and it's already gonna be hot. So the next batch, you just have to pour your cornbread in and you can call it good. Or you put your butter in, excuse me, and then pour your cornbread in. And I maybe should have added just a little bit more milk, but we're gonna make it work. So cornbread reminds me the most of probably brownie consistency, to be real honest. And yes, I use my fingers. I have washed my hands. So you just do that, get it nice and flat down at the bottom of your pan, just like you would cupcake or something like that. Scrape that off. And then we're going to put that in. We're going to set our timer for 400. Just do it with my towel. There it is. No, we're not going to set our timer for 400. We're going to set our timer for 15 minutes. Excuse me. And let that cook. We're going to let our eggs finish. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that cornbread once it's finished, dump it in here, do the next batch. So right now I'm going to go ahead and mix up the next batch so it's ready to go. And then I will come back when it's time to pour in the turkey. And usually I would leave the cornbread and the breadcrumbs here to set overnight and kind of dry out a little bit. That actually works the best. But because I don't want to have to get up in the morning and cook, I'm going to go ahead and make this all tonight. So I might let it sit for maybe an hour or something while I hang out on Wolfpack's Live. It is Thursday, so I'm in Wolfpack's Live. That may be what I do. And then about an hour before I go to bed, because it'll take it about 45 minutes-ish to cook. It's one of those kind of fidgety times, depends on your oven and all that kind of stuff. And I'll put it in before we go to bed and then let it sit out and cool down. Put the lid on it in the morning, and it has a really cool carrying bag. I did get this as a Christmas gift last year. So that is basically how we make dressing. I'll come back, I'll show you how to mix it all up, how to season everything, and we will go from there with the eggs and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk to you guys in a bit. Alright guys, so we are back. This is the last batch of cornbread here. I just wanted y'all to see what it looks like. It will split on the top like this. That's perfectly fine. If I was eating this just cornbread, I would actually let it cook for just a minute or two longer, just to brown up just a teensy bit more. It is a golden brown right now. And so what we're going to do, what I do with mine, obviously you don't need to use a butcher knife to do this. Just do that. Kind of run your knife around the edge just to make sure that everything lets go really well. And this is the beauty of a cast iron skillet. So, something stuck, so you can see there, it all just lets go. You can see it's steaming, which is fantastic. So yeah, so we're just going to do that. Just kind of go back in. I'm going to use my knife to just cut these pieces up a little bit more. And I'm going to let this sit. I'm probably going to sneak some cornbread, I'm not going to lie. I love cornbread while it's still warm. That is the best kind of cornbread that there is. Jeremy, let me know if you watch this, how many times I've said cornbread in this video. That is your job. So yeah, this is best cornbread. So good. We're going to let this sit for a while I sweep the floor and peel the eggs. They're in my sink. And then we'll come back and finish this off, guys. See you in a minute. Alright guys, we are back. We're going to finish this off. So I poured I cut up 4 of my 7 eggs, diced them up in here. I didn't get them boiled quite enough, so they're soft boiled instead of hard boiled, but it'll be all right. And I've just kind of mixed all of this together. I did crumble up the cornbread. As you can see, it's in much smaller pieces than it was the last time that you saw it. And just give this all a good mix. So the next thing we're going to do, and I did make a mess over there, so that's why you can't see that side of the kitchen anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our chicken broth and we're basically going to water all of these breadcrumbs down. There's no exact measurement to this. You just have to know what it's supposed to look like. All of this bread should be soggy. So when I say soggy, think of Oreo dipped in milk, mushy, soggy. Okay, you don't want it to become batter, but you do want it to just soak up all of the chicken breast, or chicken broth, excuse me. There's no chicken breast in here. Some people do put chicken breast in theirs, but I don't. Okay. So you're just going to mix. So you can tell it's still pretty fluffy and airy. And that is not what we're going for, so we're going to keep adding. I've used about half the box at this point, or carton, whatever you would like to call it. So there we go. I finished the carton. So see how that spoonful just kind of clumped together? How you can do that kind of like you do with mashed potatoes. That's the consistency that you are looking for. Okay. And then we have one last major ingredient. What I add to mine, to make sure that it's not dry, because if you're not careful, this can get very dry depending if you use, especially if you use cornbread that doesn't have the Jiffy cornbread, if you use like regular cornbread. But I found if you take a can of, cream of chicken soup, that's what that is, if you can't tell. I'm not sure why I have the, great for cooking is what it says. I thought it said low sodium. I was like, listen, it's Thanksgiving. Just forget about sodium. So you're just going to put that down in there. So I put this down in here, and it makes sure that my cornbread stays nice and moist while this is cooking. And it adds a lot of flavor to it. So you're just going to mix that can in. Just keep mixing. This is the hardest part of the job because it's heavy now that we've put all of the moisture into it. It's harder to mix. It's harder to pick up and move around. Okay. So we're now going to pour it from my bowl, and you don't have to use a bowl. My pan was just a bit too small. If you use those aluminum throwaway pans that are the deeper ones, that actually helps quite a bit with this step. You don't have to put it into a bowl and then put it into your pan. But just give it a good mix as you add. That will help. You can see what I was talking about, the texture of it. And this does not look pretty, but it is very good once it's done. So you're going to put that in there. And then I like to season as I go. Okay. So this is our sage, which we'll add last. And then this is our poultry seasoning. Now, we don't have to add so much poultry seasoning because I've done a lot of that with the cream of chicken. Excuse me. With the chicken broth. That has already added quite a bit of seasoning to it. So we don't have to use a lot. And again, I don't measure. I kind of eyeball it. Okay. So we're going to take that and, oh, I forgot to put the sage in. Now the breadcrumbs that I use, one of the reasons that I like them is because they've got sage in them already. If you do not like sage, you can skip this, but I love some sage. Now, be careful because that sage, it can get real potent real quick. So don't go in and dump. It's definitely a little bit at first, and then you add it in as you go. Okay? So I'm just going to squish that down to the bottom. I'm going to add some poultry seasoning into the bowl over here. Add some sage. And again, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I know when it smells right. If that makes sense. Those of you from the South know what I'm talking about. You just know when it smells right. Those of you that are not from the South, I don't know how to explain it any better than that. There's not a measurement that I know of, at least a couple of tablespoons. It is just dried breadcrumbs that are wet, so you can taste it. It's not going to hurt you. So let's see here. That's actually a pretty good mix there. You guys can see the consistency. I don't know what this consistency is called besides mushy. And I have in fact gotten this everywhere. So I'll be cleaning after we're done here. Again. But half the fun of Thanksgiving is getting messy. So, okay. So you just put it all down in the pan here. Like so. You've got your chicken soup in here. Your chicken broth. You've got your seasonings. Should be good to go. So you're going to bake this in the oven at 400 until the top is a nice solid brown color, nice and toasted on the top. Don't leave it in too long because you won't be able to get it out of the pan. We've all been there and done that. But yeah, this, guys, is your basic Southern cornbread dressing for Thanksgiving. I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below if the comments are there. If not, you can message me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at The Crafty Heifer. I'm on Facebook under my name, Marissa McCartney. Those of you that are wondering who this is that has showed up in your feed, it is Marissa McCartney with a name change. So if you missed that tidbit, welcome. I've been having fun with it. You guys have been having fun with it, and that just makes me really, really happy. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I think everybody else has as well. If you guys will remember, we are going to be doing a what is it called? Sorry. A countdown to Christmas with stories. Those are going to start on December the 1st, and I will be publishing a schedule probably next week that will have which creator, their channel, and what dates to go to their channels to hear those stories. And I think this is it for now. I'm going to, I think, put up the Christmas stuff on Saturday, maybe. Tomorrow? No, tomorrow's Friday, so Saturday. I think we're going to put the Christmas stuff up. So I realize you guys, that's a much better angle with the shadow. This is what it looks like, guys. It looks pretty gross, but it's very, very good. So, again, I apologize for the lighting in my kitchen. There is nothing I can do. I have one overhead light. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't like it. That's okay. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and the bell to get notifications. Until the next time I see you guys, remember, craft like somebody left the barn door open. Bye. Good morning. I did what I said I wasn't going to do, and I did not bake this last night. So I have done it this morning. I have added little pieces of butter on the top just to kind of get it to brown up a little bit. So you can see how it kind of browns. I could put it in for a little bit longer, but it's actually perfect where it's at right now. So this is the dressing, all completed and lovely. So the gravy that we do is actually super, super simple. I will be taking, because I'm feeding so many people, I'm going to be taking 3 cans of cream of chicken soup, some chicken broth, poultry seasoning, salt and pepper, and my other eggs, my 3 eggs that I have. Excuse me. And you chop your eggs up, put them into the gravy. You put your you open your cans, water it down to where it's a nice consistency for gravy, and then it is a little bit of seasoning in there, and you are good to go. It's super easy. If you have the giblets from the turkey, you can saute those in a pan and then put those in there as well, which is what I like to do, but I don't have the turkey here, so I can't do that. So, and all that will be done in the crock pot at work once I get there this morning. So super easy to do, just those 3 ingredients there.